AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she didn't invite my daughter? So some background. I'm 38, a single mom to a 9-year-old girl, Emily. My sister, Laura, is getting married next month, and she's been planning the wedding for a year. It's going to be a big, fancy event with over 200 guests, a 4-course meal, the works. The issue is she didn't invite Emily. To give you context, Emily and I have always been close to Laura. We used to spend a lot of time together, and I was even Laura's maid of honor at her first wedding 7 years ago. When Laura and her fiancé, Jake, started planning this wedding, I expected Emily would be invited. She's my only child, and she and Laura have a solid relationship. Emily is sweet, well-behaved, and generally gets along with everyone. So, when I first heard about the wedding and saw how much planning was going into it, I assumed it was a no-brainer that she would be on the guest list. A few weeks ago, I got the official wedding invite in the mail. It was a beautiful card, but when I looked at it, I noticed there was no mention of Emily. I was confused, so I texted Laura asking if maybe there was a mistake. She texted me back saying that due to budget constraints, she couldn't invite every kid to the wedding. She explained that they had decided to keep it an adult-only event, but she would love for Emily to attend the rehearsal dinner the night before the wedding. At first, I was upset, but I tried to understand her point of view. I know weddings can be expensive, and I know that sometimes people opt for adults-only events to keep the atmosphere more relaxed. But as the days went by, I started to feel like something was off. Emily is a big part of my life, and it feels incredibly hurtful to not have her included in such an important event for our family. My sister and I have always been close, and to not invite my child felt like she was putting boundaries on our relationship. It wasn't just that she didn't invite Emily to the wedding. It was the way she seemed to dismiss the idea that my daughter's presence would matter to me. I had a conversation with Laura about it. I told her I understood her decision, but felt hurt. I said that as my only child, Emily is a big part of my life, and it felt like a huge exclusion not to have her included in such a significant moment. Laura seemed genuinely surprised and told me she thought I'd be okay with the decision, considering how many weddings she's attended where kids weren't invited. But that didn't feel like it addressed the deeper issue. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Emily has been nothing but kind and respectful toward Laura, and I didn't think it was fair to just leave her out because of some budget constraints. Laura and Jake could have had a smaller, more intimate wedding if they didn't want a large guest list, or they could have been a little more flexible on the kid issue. I felt like they were willing to make concessions for others, but not for me and my daughter. A few days later, I called Laura again to tell her that I couldn't attend the wedding if Emily wasn't invited. I told her that while I respected her decision to have an adults-only wedding, I couldn't be part of an event that excluded my child. I made it clear that I wasn't trying to cause drama, but my daughter means the world to me, and I wouldn't feel comfortable celebrating a major family occasion while she was left out. Laura was not happy. She said I was being unreasonable and that I was making the situation about me and Emily rather than focusing on her special day. She told me she couldn't accommodate every request and that I should respect her wishes as a bride. She even brought up the fact that I had been a bridesmaid at her first wedding, so I should know how stressful weddings are. At this point, I was feeling really conflicted. On the one hand, I wanted to support my sister and be there for her on her big day. But on the other hand, I felt like she was asking me to choose between her and my daughter, and I wasn't willing to make that choice. We argued a bit, and she eventually told me that if I couldn't accept her decision, then maybe it was best if I didn't come to the wedding at all. I spent a few more days going back and forth in my head. I didn't want to cause a rift between us, but I also didn't want to be the kind of person who just accepts things that hurt my daughter and me. I know people are saying I should let it go and just go to the wedding, but I don't think I can. It's not just about a wedding invitation. It feels like a rejection of my family, and I'm not sure I can be part of that. So, I made the decision. I'm not going to the wedding. I'm not even going to the rehearsal dinner. I feel heartbroken about it because I really love my sister, but I also love my daughter, and I don't think I should have to choose. I feel like Laura has drawn a line in the sand, and I'm not willing to cross it at the cost of my relationship with Emily. I told Laura, and she hasn't responded to me since. I know she's probably upset, but I just don't know how to move forward. Maybe I'm being overly sensitive, but it feels like a slap in the face, especially when I think about how much time and energy I've spent supporting her over the years. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she didn't invite my daughter. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot and motivates me to create even more amazing content just for you. Make sure to turn on notifications so you'll never miss out on a new video. I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for your support. It truly helps the channel grow. AITA for refusing to help my sister pay for her wedding after she called me selfish for not attending her bridal shower. I, 29M, have a sister, Emily, 27F, who's getting married in a few months. Growing up, we were always close, but in the last few years, things have been a little tense between us. We've always had different ideas about what's fair in family dynamics, especially when it comes to things like money, gifts, and attention from our parents. I'll be honest, I've always felt like I'm expected to do more than my fair share for her, even though I don't get the same in return. But I've never really said anything because it's family and I didn't want to cause any drama. Emily and I have always had a strained relationship, but we've managed to keep things civil. The biggest issue has been money. Over the last couple of years, Emily has always seemed to expect me to pitch in for things that I'm not comfortable with. For example, last year, she asked me to help pay for a bachelorette party, which I agreed to, though I didn't think it was my responsibility. I'm a relatively low-income person, so I don't have a lot of extra money lying around. I barely make ends meet myself, and I don't feel like I should be expected to contribute to expensive celebrations and events that aren't really my thing. Fast forward to a few months ago, when Emily's wedding planning started in full swing. I was somewhat relieved when she didn't immediately ask me to contribute financially, but then she asked if I could help out in other ways. Specifically, she wanted me to be at her bridal shower. I didn't have an issue with that at first, but then she told me that she had planned the event with a girls-only guest list, meaning that my presence would be a bit of an afterthought. She said it was her special day and that it's not about making everyone comfortable. I'm sure you can imagine how I felt hearing that. I've been there for her countless times throughout the years. When she had a hard time with her college applications, I spent hours on the phone with her helping her sort through them. I went to every family gathering, every birthday, every holiday, just to make sure she knew I was there, even when I was barely getting by myself. But now, I was being told that I wasn't even going to be included in her bridal shower because it was just for the girls. I didn't want to make a huge deal about it, so I just told her that I didn't think it was fair for me to go to the bridal shower if I wasn't really wanted there. I thought that would be the end of it, but instead, she got upset. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. She told me that I was being dramatic and that I shouldn't care about being excluded from an event that was just a little gathering. I told her that I wasn't trying to be difficult, but if I'm going to attend something, I should at least feel welcome, and I didn't feel like I was in this case. That argument sparked a much bigger discussion, and from there, things escalated. Emily made it clear that she didn't really understand why I was so hurt by it, and I ended up saying some things I regret. I told her that I felt like I was always expected to drop everything for her, and that I didn't think it was fair for her to expect so much from me without showing the same level of consideration. That's when the real tension started. She accused me of being a terrible brother, and she said that if I didn't want to support her, I shouldn't bother showing up to the wedding either. After that conversation, I started to feel like I was being manipulated. I had already agreed to attend her wedding, even though the whole thing seemed really over the top to me. But now I was being made to feel like I was doing something wrong for not attending the bridal shower. To make matters worse, Emily then asked me for money to help cover some of the wedding costs. She said that she was counting on me to help out with the final payments for the venue, the decorations, and other things she'd been booking. It felt like a slap in the face. Here she was, calling me selfish and demanding my help, even though she had just told me I wasn't important enough to be at her bridal shower. I've been wrestling with what to do ever since. I don't want to be a bad brother, but I'm feeling really hurt and frustrated. I feel like I'm being used, and I'm honestly not sure if I should continue giving her money or even attend the wedding at all. I've already given her a lot over the years, but I feel like every time I try to set a boundary, she either ignores it or turns it around and makes me feel like I'm the problem. To make things more complicated, our parents are involved, and they've been trying to mediate the situation. They keep telling me to just let it go and to support my sister because it's her big day. I get that, but at what point do I draw the line? I'm not sure I can keep being treated like this. I know this might sound petty to some, but I can't help but feel like I'm being taken for granted. I've already agreed to attend her wedding, but I'm not sure if I should keep helping with the costs or if I should stand firm and tell her I'm not going to contribute to something that's made me feel this way. I feel like I'm walking a tightrope between keeping the peace and standing up for myself. So, AITA for refusing to help pay for my sister's wedding after she called me selfish for not attending her bridal shower. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she banned my fiancé from the event. Okay, so I, 28M, have a bit of a complicated situation with my younger sister, 24F. She's getting married in a few weeks to a guy, 26M. I don't really know well, but that's not the issue. The issue is that she recently told me that my fiancé, 29F, is not invited to the wedding, and now she's upset because I said I wouldn't attend if she's not letting my fiancé come. Let me start from the beginning. I've been with my fiancé, Emily, for 3 years. We've had our ups and downs, but we're really solid and have talked about marriage a few times. We're planning to get married next year. She gets along great with my family, especially my parents and our other siblings. So, it's not like she has a problem with anyone. Everyone loves her. That's why I was really surprised when my sister told me that she didn't want Emily at her wedding. The reason my sister gave was that Emily and her fiancé, Ben, the groom-to-be, don't get along. Apparently, they had some weird interaction a year ago at a family gathering. From what I understand, Ben made a snide comment about Emily's job, and Emily gave it right back to him. It wasn't even a heated argument, just some back-and-forth banter. But Ben was apparently offended by something Emily said, and my sister, who has always been pretty protective of him, decided she didn't want any tension at her wedding. I tried talking to her about it, asking her if she was serious about excluding Emily over a random comment. She said that she couldn't afford to have anything spoil her special day and that if I was going to bring Emily, it would just be awkward for everyone. I told her that it seemed ridiculous and unfair to ban my fiancé from the event, especially when she has been a part of the family for years, but she stood firm. At first, I thought maybe this was just a phase or that she was stressed out from wedding planning, but she made it clear that she wasn't going to change her mind. I even offered to try and mediate the situation, suggesting that Emily and Ben could sit at opposite ends of the room, or I could bring her to the wedding, but only for the ceremony, and then she could leave. But my sister didn't want to make any compromises, saying that she just wanted peace on her day. Here's the thing. I've always been close with my sister. Growing up, we were inseparable, and I've always been there for her. So when she said that Emily wasn't welcome, it felt like a betrayal to me. I know she's allowed to have her own guest list, but I also feel like she's crossing a line by dictating who I can and can't bring to her wedding, especially when it's someone I'm planning to marry. After a few days of thinking it over, I decided that I wouldn't attend her wedding if Emily wasn't invited. I called her and explained that I loved her, but I couldn't support a wedding where my fiancé wasn't welcome. She immediately got upset and said I was being childish and that I should just suck it up and come for her, even if Emily couldn't. She said I was putting my relationship with her at risk over one minor incident, and that I should just get over it for the sake of family. I told her I couldn't do that. If she was going to exclude Emily, it felt like she was choosing her fiancé over me, and that was hurtful. She said she didn't understand why I couldn't just get over it, and why I was letting a woman I wasn't even married to come between us. Now, our entire family is caught in the middle. My parents are torn. My mom says she understands why I'm upset, but she thinks I should go to the wedding and try to make amends with Ben for the sake of peace. My dad doesn't want to get involved, but I can tell he's disappointed that this situation is even happening. Our other siblings are split. They think I should either choose Emily or attend the wedding, but no one has been able to mediate the situation. I've talked to Emily about it, and she's told me she doesn't want me to cause a rift with my family over her. She says she'll support whatever decision I make, but it's clear that she doesn't want me to be in a situation where I have to choose between her and my sister. She's made it clear that she doesn't hold anything against my sister and would still be happy to go if my sister changes her mind, but she doesn't want me to put myself in a difficult spot. I've been thinking a lot about it, and I can't shake the feeling that my sister is being unreasonable. We're talking about a wedding, something that's supposed to be a celebration, not a space for grudges and drama. I can't just let it slide, because it feels like my sister is making a choice about who is more important to her. It's honestly making me feel like she values her relationship with Ben more than our family bond. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding if she won't invite my fiancé? I know it might seem extreme to some, but this is something that's really bothering me, and I don't know if I should just swallow my pride and go, or stand firm in my decision and risk ruining my relationship with my sister over this. Let me know what you think. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she disinvited me? So, to give some background, I'm 28M, the youngest of 3 siblings. My sister, 32F, is getting married in a couple of months, and things have been a bit complicated with planning. I've always had a somewhat strained relationship with her, especially in the past few years. When we were younger, she was pretty protective of me, but after I moved out to attend college, we grew apart. She's always been very independent, and I think it was hard for her to have me around as I started making my own decisions. Now, she and I don't have the closest relationship, but I still try to keep in touch. We don't hang out often, but we text and check in occasionally. Over the years, I've noticed she tends to be a bit controlling, especially when it comes to family events. This was especially clear when she started planning her wedding. The issue started when she told me that she had a very specific vision for her wedding and wanted all of us to follow it. She sent a list of do's and don'ts, which included things like no brightly colored outfits and no casual attire. She asked everyone to wear formal attire, which is fine, but she also specified that all outfits had to be pre-approved by her. The dress code, while a little extreme, didn't seem like the biggest issue at first. But then, she started asking for money. It wasn't just about wedding gifts or contributions. She specifically wanted us to contribute financially to the wedding itself. She made it clear that she was not expecting any gifts, but instead, everyone had to pay a certain amount to help with the wedding expenses. The amount she asked for wasn't small either. It was a few $1,000s per person. She explained that it was necessary to cover the venue, catering, decorations, and other expenses, and that it was traditionally expected of close family members. At first, I thought it was a bit strange, but I try to be understanding. After all, weddings can be expensive, and I understand wanting family to pitch in. But then, things took a turn. She started getting more and more specific with what she expected from us. She requested that my parents contribute a certain amount, and since I was still living with them at the time, she expected me to contribute as well, even though I had no plans to get married anytime soon. She also asked my girlfriend, 25F, whom I'd been dating for a little over a year, to pitch in. She didn't want her to attend the wedding unless she contributed financially. My girlfriend was taken aback by this. She didn't have any close relationship with my sister and didn't even know if she would be invited to the wedding in the first place. But my sister insisted that if she was coming, she had to pay. This was when I started feeling uncomfortable. The whole situation felt like a financial burden, and I didn't think it was fair to ask so much from people who hadn't even been given the chance to experience the wedding planning firsthand. I ended up talking to my sister about it, and I was very clear about my feelings. I told her I would be happy to attend the wedding, support her in whatever way I could, and offer a gift, but that I was not comfortable giving such a large sum of money to something that didn't feel like it was about celebrating love, but rather about covering the costs of a lavish party. I told her I couldn't justify that amount of money, especially since I was still trying to save for my own future. I also mentioned that I thought her expectation that my girlfriend pay for her own attendance was unreasonable, given the circumstances. She didn't take it well. She accused me of being selfish, unsupportive, and not valuing family. She said that weddings were expensive and that I was just being cheap and unwilling to contribute to her happiness. It was like she couldn't understand why I didn't see things the way she did. She also said that if I wasn't willing to help financially, maybe I shouldn't attend the wedding at all. I thought that was a bit extreme, but I respected her wishes and said that I understood if my presence wasn't what she wanted. That seemed to hit a nerve, and she immediately said, "Fine. If you're not willing to help, you're uninvited." I was stunned. She had disinvited me from her wedding over money. I tried to reason with her, but she was firm in her decision. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how controlling and manipulative the situation felt. She wasn't asking for help in a way that felt like a family support system. It was more about her expectations and demands, and if I didn't comply, I would be excluded. After being uninvited, I felt hurt, confused, and honestly, a little relieved. I didn't want to go to her wedding if it was going to be this much drama, but it still felt wrong to be excluded like that. A few weeks passed, and my parents got involved, trying to mediate the situation. They told me that I should just pay the money and go, because it was my sister's big day, and I didn't want to cause family problems. They argued that I could afford it, and that it would be the right thing to do. I disagreed and told them I didn't want to give in to what felt like an unreasonable demand. Eventually, I just stopped engaging in the conversation. I couldn't bring myself to go along with what felt like an abusive request for money, and I didn't want to play into my sister's manipulative behavior. My parents are still upset with me for not just giving in, and they've even started to question my commitment to the family. Now, the family is split over this, with some saying I should have just paid and attended, while others agree that it was unreasonable for her to expect so much. I'm left feeling like I've lost a lot, not just in terms of the wedding, but in terms of my relationship with my sister. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding and ultimately being disinvited. AITA for not letting my sister-in-law stay with us after she refused to follow our house rules. So a bit of context. My husband, John, 32, and I, Claire, 30, live in a decent-sized house in a suburban area. We don't have kids, and we've always been pretty clear about the house rules, especially when it comes to guests. We like our space, and while we're open to hosting friends and family, we do expect people to respect our rules and our home. Things like no smoking inside, cleaning up after yourself, and not letting pets roam around unsupervised. Nothing outrageous, but we've always been firm about it. Here's where things get a bit tricky. My sister-in-law, Sarah, 28, recently went through a messy breakup. She and her now ex-partner were living together, and after things ended, she needed a place to stay while she sorted out her life. I could tell she was struggling, and even though she's not the easiest person to get along with, I felt bad for her and offered her a place to stay. John was on board with this, though he was a little hesitant because Sarah has a history of not respecting boundaries, but he figured it would only be temporary, so it wouldn't be a big deal. I gave her a heads up about the house rules, especially since we don't usually let people stay for extended periods of time unless they respect our space. She seemed okay with it, and we agreed she'd stay for about a week while she figured out her next steps. At first, everything seemed fine. She was polite, didn't ask for too much, and followed the rules. But after a couple of days, things started to change. It began with small stuff, leaving her things all over the house, using our bathroom products without asking, and leaving dirty dishes in the sink for hours. I brushed it off at first, thinking she was just overwhelmed. But then it escalated. One evening, I came home from work to find her lounging on the couch with her dog, a large, hyperactive golden retriever, sprawled out on our brand-new leather sectional. Now, we've always been strict about not letting pets on the furniture. We love animals, but we've worked hard to keep our house in good condition, and the couch was a big investment. I politely reminded Sarah that pets weren't allowed on the furniture, and she snapped back with, "It's just a dog, Claire. It's not a big deal." I told her it was a big deal to us, and asked her to please keep the dog off the couch. She reluctantly agreed, but I could tell she wasn't happy about it. The next day, I came home again to find the dog on the couch. When I confronted Sarah, she acted like it was an innocent mistake, but I could tell she was getting defensive. I told her that if she couldn't respect our rules, she would have to find somewhere else to stay. She was taken aback and apologized, but I didn't feel like she really understood where I was coming from. A few more days passed, and then the real trouble started. Sarah started leaving food out all over the house, like full plates of food just left on the coffee table, the kitchen counter, or even on the floor. I don't mind her snacking, but it was getting excessive, and I wasn't about to let the house turn into a dump. I asked her to please clean up after herself, but she responded with, "I'm going through a hard time right now, Claire. Can't you just give me a break?" I'm all for being empathetic, but I don't think that's an excuse to act disrespectfully in someone else's home. After the food situation, things just kept getting worse. She started smoking inside. Now, I know she smokes. She's always been a smoker, but we've made it clear that smoking inside is a hard no. I caught her smoking in the living room one evening, and when I confronted her, she said, "It's just one cigarette. I can't go outside. I'm not feeling well." I told her that if she couldn't respect our rules, she'd have to leave. That's when she started crying, saying I was being mean and unsympathetic and that she had no other place to go. At this point, I was feeling incredibly frustrated. She had been with us for nearly a week at that point, and while I felt for her situation, I was starting to feel like she was taking advantage of our hospitality. She had ignored every boundary I'd set, and I was honestly starting to regret offering her a place to stay. I spoke to John about it, and he agreed that Sarah wasn't respecting our home, but he didn't want to make things worse by kicking her out. He suggested that we try talking to her again and giving her one more chance. I reluctantly agreed, but when I talked to her, it didn't go well. She told me that I was being uptight and acting like a control freak. She also said that she had no other options and needed a place to stay. I tried to be understanding, but it was clear she didn't want to change her behavior. That's when I said, "You need to find somewhere else to stay. You can't keep treating our home like this." Sarah was absolutely furious. She packed up her things and stormed out, calling me every name in the book as she left. I felt terrible, but at the same time, I was exhausted. We had offered her a place to stay, but she had been nothing but disrespectful. It's not like we kicked her out immediately. We tried to give her a chance, but she couldn't respect our house rules. Now, I'm feeling guilty. I know she's going through a hard time, and part of me feels like I should have been more patient with her. But at the same time, we have to live here, and we can't let people just walk all over us. John says I did the right thing, but I can't help but wonder if I was too harsh. AITA for not letting my sister-in-law stay after she refused to follow our house rules. AITA for telling my friend I don't want to be her maid of honor because of her wedding drama. So, I, 28F, have been friends with Jenna, 29F, since college. We met in our first year and quickly became close. Over the years, we've supported each other through breakups, new jobs, family issues, you name it. Our friendship has always been really important to me, and I've always thought of her as one of my closest friends. That's why, when she got engaged last year, I was thrilled for her, and of course, I agreed to be her maid of honor. Now, let me explain the situation that led to where I am today. Jenna's wedding planning has been an absolute disaster. I'm not exaggerating when I say it's been a constant source of stress for both her and the people around her, especially her bridesmaids. A few months ago, she had a meltdown because she couldn't decide on the color scheme for the wedding. I'm talking full-on crying, demanding that we all pick between 4 different shades of blue, which sounds ridiculous, but it really was that dramatic. Eventually, after days of back and forth, we landed on something she was happy with, but that didn't stop her from changing her mind again a week later. Then came the dress shopping. Jenna's taste in fashion has always been, let's just say, bold. She picked out bridesmaid dresses that were, to put it kindly, unusual. They were bright neon green, full length, and had these weird ruffles at the bottom. Not only was the color eye-catching, and not in a good way, but the fabric was so uncomfortable that none of us could even stand in the dresses for more than 5 minutes without feeling like we were suffocating. When we tried to give constructive feedback, she lost it. She made it clear that we had no say in what we were wearing, and we had to wear exactly what she told us to. Throughout all of this, I was doing my best to be supportive. I offered to help with planning, sent her ideas for the wedding, and even helped her with some DIY decorations. But I started to feel like it wasn't enough. Jenna kept leaning on me to do more and more. I'd already agreed to be her maid of honor, so I expected to take on some responsibilities, but it was becoming overwhelming. At first, it was just helping her with the guest list and making sure everything was organized for the bridal shower, but then she started asking me to handle things like coordinating with vendors, keeping track of RSVPs, and even acting as a personal assistant. There were times I felt like I wasn't even being treated like a friend anymore. One night, we were supposed to have a girls' night and talk about wedding stuff, but instead, she spent the entire evening complaining about the guests she hadn't invited yet and how stressful everything was. By the end of it, I was emotionally drained. Every time I talked to her, she would rant about how difficult the planning was and how no one was helping her enough. Yet when I tried to pitch in, she'd either ignore my ideas or act like I was making things worse. I'm trying to make it clear that I have a life too. I work full-time, I have my own relationships to nurture, and I also have my own stressors. Yet every time I talked about needing a break, or even just some time to myself, Jenna would guilt-trip me, saying that I was letting her down. She would say things like, "You're my maid of honor, you're supposed to be supporting me through this," or "I thought we were best friends, but now it feels like you're ditching me when I need you the most." I was so tired of hearing this, especially because she seemed to think that my life could revolve around her wedding and nothing else. The final straw came when she asked me to be responsible for managing her wedding day schedule. She wanted me to be the point of contact for every vendor, to make sure everything was running on time, and to handle any emergency situations that might arise. I explained to her that this was a huge responsibility, and I wasn't sure I could do it on top of everything else. She said, "Well, I can't trust anyone else. You're my maid of honor, so it's your job." At that point, I had had enough. I told her I couldn't keep doing everything for her, and I needed to step back from some of my duties. I suggested that we find someone else to help with the day of coordination, and maybe even consider hiring a wedding planner, since she seemed to need more support than I was able to give. That's when she flipped out. She said I was abandoning her, and that I was being selfish. She even said she didn't know if our friendship would survive this. That hit me hard because I didn't want to lose her, but at the same time, I didn't want to keep sacrificing my mental health for the sake of a wedding. So, I ended up telling her that I could no longer be her maid of honor. I told her that while I loved her and would be at the wedding, I couldn't continue in the role of maid of honor, given how things were going. I felt like I had been pushed to the brink, and I wasn't able to maintain my boundaries anymore. She's furious with me now. She says I'm being a terrible friend, and that I'm abandoning her during the most important time of her life. I've tried to explain that I can still support her, but I just can't take on the same level of responsibility, but she's not hearing it. Our mutual friends are split, with some agreeing that I need to look out for my own well-being, while others are saying I'm overreacting and should just suck it up for her sake. I feel guilty, but at the same time, I'm not sure how much more I could have done. AITA for stepping down as her maid of honor? AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after she lost her job? Okay, 29F. Need some opinions here because this situation has been really messy, and I'm torn between doing what I think is right for my well-being and feeling like I'm being an unreasonable person. Here's the situation. My sister, 31F, let's call her Rachel, lost her job about 6 months ago. She had been working at the same company for years, but the company underwent massive layoffs, and unfortunately, she was among those let go. It was a huge blow for her. I feel for her, I really do. She has been struggling to find another job ever since. I know the job market is tough right now, and she's put in a lot of applications, but nothing seems to be working out. Rachel and I have always had a somewhat complicated relationship. Growing up, I was the more responsible one, and she was the carefree, impulsive one. We never really saw eye to eye, and there's always been this dynamic where I'm the one who ends up being the sensible sibling. I've always tried to help her when she's been in tough situations, whether financially or emotionally, but it's never felt balanced. I've helped her out several times over the years, whether it's paying off debts she racked up or letting her borrow money for things she couldn't afford. But every time I did, she'd promise to pay me back, and then nothing. No repayment, no gratitude. So, when Rachel lost her job and started struggling financially, she came to me asking if she could move in with me temporarily. She said she needed a place to stay while she searched for a new job and got back on her feet. At first, I felt bad for her and I wanted to help, but at the same time, I immediately felt uneasy. I've been living on my own for a few years now, and while I love my sister, I've also grown to really appreciate my space and my peace. I don't think I've ever fully appreciated the privacy I've had until I was faced with the idea of someone else living with me again. After thinking about it for a while, I told her I wasn't comfortable letting her move in. I explained that while I understood she was going through a tough time, I wasn't in a position to take on the responsibility of having her live with me. I've had a pretty demanding job, and I just don't think I could handle the stress of trying to help her find a job and also accommodate her living in my space. Plus, I'm not sure how long she'd actually be able to contribute to the household, and I wasn't up for risking my own financial stability for the sake of trying to help her out. I also mentioned that if she was serious about getting a job, she needed to have a routine and structure, and being in my space might not help with that. Rachel didn't take it well. She accused me of being selfish and cold-hearted, pointing out that I'd always had my own life together and that I should be more willing to help her, especially since I'm in a stable place financially. She said she couldn't understand why I'd turn my back on her when she needed me most. I tried to explain that I wasn't turning my back on her, but rather I needed to look out for my own well-being and peace of mind too. I also told her that she needed to figure things out on her own and that maybe moving back in with our parents, who live in a different city, would be a better option for her. I told her I'd help her in other ways, like by helping her with her resume, giving her job leads, or even just being there emotionally if she needed to talk. But I wasn't going to let her move into my apartment. She was really upset and called me a lot of names, including selfish, ungrateful, and heartless. Since then, things have been awkward between us. She hasn't reached out much, and I feel like there's been a significant amount of distance between us. Our parents have also been trying to guilt-trip me into letting her stay with me, saying that I should be more supportive and that family is supposed to be there for each other in times of need. My parents keep telling me that I'm being too harsh and that I'm only thinking about myself, not her. Now I'm starting to feel like I might have made the wrong decision. I know that Rachel has her faults, but she's also going through a really tough time, and maybe I could have been more understanding. At the same time, I don't want to feel like I'm enabling her or putting myself in a situation where I'm not comfortable. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after she lost her job? I know I'm not obligated to, but I also feel like I might be turning my back on her when she needs help the most. AITA for not letting my sister-in-law move in with me after her divorce. So, this has been causing a lot of tension in the family, and I need some outside perspective. I, 30F, have been married to my husband, 33M, for 5 years, and we have a young child, 3F. A few months ago, my sister-in-law, Emily, 35F, went through a pretty nasty divorce. Her ex-husband cheated on her, and they fought over custody of their 2 kids, who are both under 10. The whole thing was a mess. From what I understand, the divorce has left Emily in a bad financial situation. She's been staying with her mom for the past couple of months, but her mom is in her 60s and has some health issues. So, Emily has been talking about finding a new place to live. A few weeks ago, Emily came to me with a proposition. She asked if she could move in with my husband and me for a while until she gets back on her feet. She said she was trying to find a place of her own, but with her financial situation and the kids, it was just too hard. She also mentioned that her mom wasn't able to provide the support she needed, especially since her health was declining, and her mom was starting to feel like she couldn't take care of her grandkids anymore. Now, I love my sister-in-law, but this felt like a huge ask. We live in a small 3-bedroom house. One of the rooms is for my daughter, and the other is an office that I occasionally work out of. We don't have a space for a whole other person and 2 kids, especially since my daughter is still pretty young and has a routine. I'm also a stay-at-home mom right now, so my days are already busy managing the house and taking care of our daughter. I told Emily that I wasn't sure it would be possible for us to offer her a place to stay, mainly because of the lack of space. I explained that it would be really difficult to have 3 more people in the house, especially with how our lives are structured right now. I also mentioned that I didn't feel comfortable with the idea of having 2 kids in our house who I wouldn't be able to supervise closely all the time. At first, she seemed disappointed but understood. However, the next day, she called me again, and this time, she was a bit more upset. She told me that I was being selfish and that she had nowhere else to go. She said she was going through a tough time and just needed some support, and that as family, I should be willing to help her out. She said it was hard enough dealing with the divorce and the kids, and that she couldn't believe I would turn my back on her when she needed me most. I felt really guilty, but I still wasn't sure how we could make it work. I mentioned that maybe she could look into renting a room somewhere, or maybe even getting a temporary place for herself and the kids, but she insisted that she couldn't afford anything. She even asked me if I could help her with the rent for a place, but my husband and I are also saving for a down payment on a house, so we don't have a lot of extra money to be giving away. I tried to gently suggest other solutions, like her asking her mom for more help or looking into family shelters or other programs. But Emily wasn't receptive to that and told me I was acting like I didn't care about her. After that conversation, I felt torn. I wanted to help, but I just didn't think it was feasible for us. Over the next week or so, Emily kept texting me, asking if I had changed my mind or if I had any other suggestions for her. The messages kept getting more and more emotional, and she started telling me that I was abandoning her and that I was showing her that family doesn't support each other when it really matters. She told me that she felt betrayed and that if I wasn't going to be there for her, I wasn't really family. The situation escalated when Emily started talking to other family members about how I was refusing to help her. My husband's side of the family is fairly close-knit, and many of them know how hard the divorce has been on her, so naturally, they all sided with her. A few of them reached out to me, asking why I wasn't helping her and why I was being so difficult. Some even said things like, "I can't believe you wouldn't let her stay with you when she's struggling so much," or "What kind of family are you if you can't offer her a place to stay?" It felt like the whole family was turning against me, and I started to feel really isolated. Eventually, the pressure became too much, and I broke down and told my husband about how I was feeling. He agreed with me that it wasn't a good idea for Emily and her kids to move in with us. We just didn't have the space, and it would cause a lot of tension in our home. He said he understood why I was hesitant, and that we shouldn't feel guilty for not being able to offer her a place to stay. But after our conversation, things only got worse. Emily continued to contact me, and the emotional pressure kept piling on. The more I tried to stand my ground, the more I was made to feel like I was a bad person. Finally, I reached a breaking point and told Emily that I had thought about it long enough, and that I just didn't think we could accommodate her. I told her that I wished I could help more, but it wasn't possible. Emily was absolutely furious with me. She started saying things like, "You clearly don't care about me, and this is what family does for each other," and she called me all sorts of names. She also accused me of being selfish and unsympathetic, and that hurt even more because I genuinely do feel for her. I just don't think our home is the right place for her and her kids right now. So now the entire family is upset with me. I've been getting messages from various relatives telling me that I'm wrong and that I should have helped. Some even said that I should put my own needs aside to support family, and that I'm being heartless. But I just don't know how to balance my responsibility to my own family with what my sister-in-law wants. I'm at a loss. I want to be there for Emily, but I don't think it's reasonable for her to expect me to take in her and her kids when we already have a full plate. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move in with me. AITA for not attending my best friend's wedding because of her bridesmaid dress. I, 28F, have been best friends with Emma, 29F, since we were kids. We've been through everything together, from high school drama to relationship troubles, and we've always had each other's backs. So when Emma got engaged to Jake, 31M, last year, I was beyond excited for her. She asked me to be one of her bridesmaids, and of course, I said yes. I've always been honored to be a part of her life, and this wedding meant a lot to me. The issue started about 4 months before the wedding. Emma sent out a message to all the bridesmaids with a link to the dress she had picked out. It was a beautiful dress, don't get me wrong, but there was one major problem. It was way out of my budget. The dress cost around $300, which is a bit steep for me, especially considering I had other expenses at the time. I'm not broke by any means, but I live paycheck to paycheck, and I was saving for my own personal things like paying off credit card debt and buying a new car. I didn't want to upset Emma, so I waited a few days and then messaged her privately, explaining my situation. I told her I'd love to be a part of her wedding and wear the dress, but I honestly couldn't afford it right now. I also mentioned that I'd be happy to chip in for the cost of hair and makeup, as I knew those expenses were probably adding up. I asked if there were any other options, like a cheaper alternative dress, or if I could buy something similar at a lower price. Emma's response completely blindsided me. She told me that the dress was non-negotiable and that she really wanted all her bridesmaids to wear the same thing. I get it, I do, but she didn't even acknowledge my financial situation or offer any alternatives. She just said, "I know it's a bit expensive, but this is my big day, and I really want everything to be perfect." She added a little note saying, "I'm sure you can make it work." I was disappointed, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so I decided to try and figure out how to afford it. Over the next couple of weeks, I sold some things I didn't need and cut back on spending where I could. It wasn't easy, but I scraped together enough money to buy the dress. Then, about a month later, Emma sent out another message to the bridesmaids with a note about the wedding day timeline. She mentioned that the bridesmaids were responsible for their own transportation to the venue, which was about 45 minutes away from where I live. I've never been the best at navigating the financial side of group events, and I thought this was a bit strange considering I had always been under the impression that the couple would help with transportation. But that's not the real issue. The real issue came when she mentioned that she wanted all the bridesmaids to pay for their own hotel room the night before the wedding, as they would be getting ready there. She mentioned that she was paying for a room for herself and Jake, but everyone else was on their own. The cost for a night in the hotel was about $150, and honestly, that was the last straw for me. At this point, I had already stretched my budget to buy the dress, and now she was asking me to spend even more money on a hotel room that I didn't need. I really didn't understand why she couldn't have arranged something more affordable for her bridesmaids. I'm not saying that I didn't want to support her, but I felt like I was being asked to spend a ridiculous amount of money on something that was ultimately not my responsibility. I messaged her again and explained that I just couldn't afford the hotel room. I told her I would absolutely be there for the wedding and the ceremony, but I couldn't justify spending that extra money for a room I didn't need. I offered to find my own way to the venue the morning of the wedding, even if it meant getting up really early. I thought I was being reasonable, but once again, Emma didn't take it well. She told me that she was really hurt by my response and that she felt like I wasn't prioritizing her wedding. She said, "I thought we were close, but this feels like you don't care enough to make it work. Everyone else is doing it, so why can't you?" I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to make her feel bad, but it felt like she was asking for too much. She ignored my explanation and said, "If you don't want to be part of the wedding the way I've asked, then maybe you shouldn't be in it at all." That hit me hard. I've been her best friend for years, and I thought I was doing my best to support her, but it felt like she didn't understand my situation at all. After that conversation, I thought long and hard about whether I should attend the wedding at all. I really wanted to be there for Emma, but I just couldn't shake the feeling that she was being unreasonable. I ended up deciding that I would not attend the wedding as a bridesmaid, and I would not be spending money on a hotel room that I didn't need. Instead, I sent her a message explaining that I wouldn't be able to attend the wedding in the capacity she had asked. I told her I still loved her and wanted to celebrate her, but I felt like the financial burden was too much. She was devastated and said that I was ruining her big day. She called me selfish and said I was being inconsiderate. The whole situation has left me feeling incredibly guilty. I've been her best friend for so long, and I don't want to lose our friendship over something like this. But at the same time, I feel like I've been more than reasonable, and I shouldn't have to go into debt to support her wedding. So, AITA for not attending my best friend's wedding as a bridesmaid because of the dress and hotel situation. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law stay at my house after she insulted my parenting. I, 32F, have a 4-year-old daughter, Emma. My husband, Jake, 34M, and I are both working parents, so our daily routine is a bit hectic. We juggle work, daycare, and keeping the house in some semblance of order. While we do our best to keep things running smoothly, it's been a bit of a struggle lately with both of us working full-time and our daughter going through a particularly challenging phase. Jake's sister, Lauren, 28F, has never been a fan of our parenting style. She has no kids of her own, and I think that's part of it. She has a lot of opinions on what parents should and shouldn't do, and while I get that, I also know that she has no clue what it's really like to raise a young child. We've had disagreements in the past, but things have been civil enough that we've been able to get along. A few weeks ago, Lauren called us and said she needed a place to stay for a week. She's been living in a small apartment with a roommate who just moved out, and she was looking for some time away from the stress of it all. She didn't want to stay at her parents' house because they live about 2 hours away, so we agreed to let her stay with us. At the time, I didn't think it would be an issue. I figured it would be a week, and she'd be out of our hair soon enough. The first couple of days were fine. Lauren is a bit high maintenance, but I didn't think much of it. She's always been a little demanding, but we were doing our best to accommodate her. We let her use our guest room, and she spent the first few days lounging around, getting some relaxation after the stress of moving out. However, things started to go downhill after a few days when Emma had a meltdown at dinner. She's been having more of these lately, which is typical for a 4-year-old, especially when she's tired or overstimulated. Emma started crying, screaming, and refusing to eat. We tried to calm her down, but nothing was working. I was frustrated, and honestly, it was a bit embarrassing to have my child acting out in front of Lauren. Lauren, who had been sitting at the table silently up until that point, suddenly spoke up. "You need to stop being so lenient with her. You're just enabling this behavior. She needs to learn discipline. If you don't get control of her now, it's going to get worse." I was taken aback. I didn't expect her to say something like that, especially considering she has no children and has never really been around kids in a hands-on way. I replied calmly, "We're doing our best, Lauren. She's going through a phase, and we're trying to handle it as best as we can." But Lauren didn't back down. "Well, clearly it's not working. You're just letting her get away with everything. She's running the show here, and it's not okay." I try to brush it off, but it stung. I know Emma can be difficult at times, but I also know she's a good kid. We're doing what we can to help her work through her emotions, and I didn't appreciate the judgment from someone who doesn't have any real experience with kids. The tension in the house only increased from there. Every time Emma had a tantrum or acted out, Lauren had something to say about it. She shouldn't be eating that snack so late. She should be sleeping at least 10 hours a night. Why aren't you using positive reinforcement? It felt like every little thing we did was under scrutiny. One evening, Emma had another tantrum, and I had reached my breaking point. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and just wanted to make it through the night without any more criticism. I snapped, "Lauren, I don't need you to parent my child. I'm doing the best I can, and if you can't respect that, maybe it's time for you to leave." Lauren was shocked. "What? You're kicking me out?" "I'm just trying to help." "No," I said, "you're not helping. You're making everything harder. If you can't respect the way we're raising our daughter, maybe you shouldn't be here." Lauren's eyes filled with tears, and she started to pack her things. She didn't say much, but the tension in the room was palpable. Jay came home just as she was leaving and asked what had happened. I explained the situation, and he immediately sided with me. He said he had been noticing how critical Lauren had been of our parenting and that he agreed I had every right to set boundaries with her. The next day, I got a text from Jake's parents, who were obviously upset. They said I had been too harsh with Lauren and that she was devastated by what had happened. I tried to explain my side, but they didn't seem to understand. They suggested I apologize to Lauren, but I don't feel like I owe her an apology. I set a boundary, and I think I had every right to do so. Jake is sticking by me, but now my in-laws are all upset with me, and I feel like I'm the one in the wrong. I didn't want to cause drama or hurt anyone's feelings, but at the same time, I can't keep letting Lauren criticize everything we do as parents. I'm not perfect, but I'm doing the best I can, and I don't think I deserve to be treated like I'm failing. So, AITA for kicking my sister-in-law out after she insulted my parenting, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with me after he lost his job. So, I, 29F, live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the city. I've been living here for about 4 years now, and I absolutely love it. It's my own little sanctuary. I have a full-time job, and while my finances are tight sometimes, I've managed to keep everything in balance and pay rent on time. I don't have any roommates, and I've always valued my privacy. It's not a huge place, but it's perfect for me. My sister, 32F, has been with her fiancé, 34M, for about 3 years now, and they've been talking about moving in together, buying a house, all that typical life stuff. However, recently, her fiancé lost his job. It was an unexpected situation where the company he worked for had to do some layoffs, and unfortunately, he was one of the casualties. He's been trying to find a new job, but hasn't had much luck, and it's been a tough time for him. My sister called me about a week ago and asked if he could stay at my place temporarily until he found something new. At first, I didn't think much of it. I understand that people go through tough times, and I'd never want to leave family hanging. But when she mentioned it would be for a few months, I started to hesitate. I don't know if I can handle someone living with me for that long, especially someone I'm not used to having around all the time. Here's the thing. I really enjoy having my space. I'm an introvert, and I've worked hard to make my apartment feel like a sanctuary where I can recharge. I've had roommates before, but I've found that I get very stressed out when I don't have my own private space to retreat to. I know my sister's fiancé, but we're not super close. We get along fine, but we don't hang out much outside of family gatherings. The idea of him being in my apartment for potentially months at a time really stressed me out. I talked to my sister about it, and I tried to explain that while I understand the situation, I'm just not comfortable with him moving in. I mentioned that my apartment is small, and it would really affect my daily routine and personal time. I said that I'd be happy to help in any other way, whether it's helping him look for jobs, offering emotional support, or even helping him find a temporary rental or shared living situation. But I told her I just didn't think it was a good idea for him to stay at my place. She was really upset. She told me that I was being selfish and inconsiderate, and that I should be there for family during tough times. She said that it's only temporary, and that it would mean a lot to her if I could do this for them. I told her I completely understand why she's asking and that I feel bad, but it's just a boundary I'm not willing to cross. After that conversation, I started feeling a bit guilty. It's not like I'm refusing to help them at all. I'm offering other ways to help, like supporting him in his job search. But part of me can't shake the feeling that I'm being a bit of a jerk. I know they're struggling, and I also know how close my sister and her fiancé are. Maybe I should just suck it up and offer my apartment, at least for a few weeks, until they figure something out. The thing is, I'm really worried that this could turn into something more permanent. What if it ends up being longer than a few months? What if I start to feel resentful? I don't want to get into a situation where I feel trapped in my own home, and I really value my privacy. My apartment is small, and while I know it's not the worst place to live, having someone else there would definitely make things feel cramped. I've spoken to a few close friends about it, and some of them think I'm being overly cautious and that I should just let him stay. Others have told me that I'm entitled to my privacy, and it's okay to say no to something that will make me uncomfortable. I'm just not sure where the line is. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with me after he lost his job? Should I be doing more to help them out? Or is it okay for me to set this boundary? AITA for confronting my sister about her perfect life and calling her out on her privilege? So, I, 28F, have a sister, Emma, 26F. Emma has always been the perfect one in our family, or at least that's how my parents and extended family treat her. I don't know if that's because of how she presents herself, or if it's because of the way she's lived her life. But it's honestly starting to get to me, and I feel like I need a vent. From a young age, Emma was always the golden child. She was the one who got straight A's, the one who was always complimented for how well-behaved she was, and the one who, it seemed, could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I was always the more rebellious one. I was a decent student, but I wasn't obsessed with perfection like she was. I wasn't as involved in extracurriculars, and I definitely didn't care about pleasing anyone the way she did. I always felt like I was kind of in the shadow of her success, but that was fine because I was doing my own thing. Fast forward to now. Emma's life seems like it's on a perpetual upward trajectory. She married her college sweetheart, has a gorgeous house in a fancy neighborhood, 2 kids, and the best job at a tech company. She has an Instagram-worthy life that she's always posting about. But behind the scenes, I've always known that a lot of what she presents isn't as flawless as it seems. Emma's always had financial help from our parents, and it's been clear to me that her life has been a lot easier because of her privilege. Let me clarify. I'm not saying she hasn't worked hard, but I don't think people realize how much of her success has been handed to her on a silver platter. Growing up, our parents constantly bailed her out whenever she was in a bind. When she was in college and couldn't make rent, our parents paid. When she wanted to start her own business, they funded it. When she wanted to buy her house, they gave her the down payment. Meanwhile, I've always had to figure things out on my own. No help from the parents, no financial safety net. I've struggled with school debt, and I'm still working my way up in my career. And on top of that, I'm constantly being told how lucky I am to be so independent. But it's not luck. It's just necessity. A few weeks ago, my frustration reached a breaking point. Emma was posting on social media again, showing off her beautiful home, her perfectly made-up kids, and how she was living the dream. I had just spent a grueling week at work and was barely keeping up with my bills. I'm not complaining, but I couldn't help feeling like I was being shoved down by all of her seemingly perfect posts. I tried to brush it off, but then she called me that weekend to tell me about a new vacation she was planning for her family. She was asking me if I wanted to join them, and I was already feeling pretty irritated. I kind of lost it when she started talking about how hard her life had been lately, trying to juggle work, motherhood, and keeping up with everything. She said, "I just don't know how you do it without any help. It must be exhausting." And that's when I snapped. I told her that maybe if she didn't get handed everything on a silver platter, she would realize how privileged she really is. I told her that it's easy to act like you've got it all together when you've had your parents covering your back every time you needed it. I also told her that I was tired of her acting like she had the worst life when I was struggling every single day to make ends meet. She was taken aback. There was a long silence on the phone before she said, "I don't think you understand how hard it is to be in my shoes. I've had to make a lot of sacrifices too, you know." But I interrupted her and said, "Sacrifices? Sacrifices? Are you seriously going to act like you've had it tough when you've had everything handed to you your whole life?" She tried to defend herself, but I was too far gone. I told her that I was sick of being made to feel like I was lesser because I didn't have her picture-perfect life. The conversation ended awkwardly, and we haven't really spoken since. Our parents called me the next day, furious that I would say something like that to Emma. They told me I was being unfair and that I needed to support her, that she was just venting and didn't mean to come off as privileged. But I still can't shake the feeling that I was right. Emma doesn't get it, and our parents are too blinded by their own favoritism to see it. I've been feeling guilty about what I said, though. Did I go too far? I could have kept my cool and just not let her comments get under my skin. Maybe it wasn't the best way to address my frustrations. On the other hand, I'm tired of constantly being told that I'm lucky because I'm independent, when really I've just had to work my ass off to survive. AITA for confronting her about her privilege and calling her out on how easy her life has been compared to mine. AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding because she invited my ex-husband. So I, 32F, have been friends with Sarah, 32F, since we were in elementary school. We've been through a lot together, family stuff, breakups, bad jobs, all of it. I thought I knew her really well, and I genuinely thought we had a great friendship. But recently, things have gone a little weird between us. A few years ago, I was married to Jason, 35M. We were together for about 7 years, and while things started off great, we ended up divorcing after he had an affair with one of his coworkers. It was a rough time for me, and I was devastated to say the least. The betrayal hit me hard, and the fallout was just as bad. Sarah was one of the people who helped me get through that time. She was there for me when I was picking up the pieces, and honestly, I thought she understood why I was so hurt by Jason's actions. Fast forward to a few months ago when Sarah announced that she was getting married to her boyfriend, Mark, 33M. I was really happy for her. She and Mark had been dating for almost 5 years, and they were really good together. I was excited for the wedding, and we started planning together. But then things started to get weird. About a month before the wedding, Sarah sent me an invitation. The invitation was for both me and my boyfriend, Daniel, 34M, and it had the usual details: location, time, dress code. But there was one thing that stuck out to me immediately. Jason was going to be there. And when I say he was going to be there, I mean he was invited officially. Now, let me clarify. Sarah and I had talked about Jason and his affair in the past. I told her exactly how I felt about him, how hurt I was by the betrayal, and how I had no interest in ever being around him again. I never expected her to choose sides, but I thought she understood that I needed distance from Jason for my own mental health. So when I saw that Jason was invited, I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. I reached out to Sarah and asked if she was serious about inviting him. Her response was that Jason and Mark had become friends through work and that they had started getting along after everything went down. She said that it wasn't fair to hold grudges and that I should just be an adult and attend the wedding for her sake. I told her that there was no way I could go to a wedding where my ex-husband was going to be, especially when the whole reason for our divorce was his affair. I explained that it wasn't about holding a grudge. It was about my emotional well-being. I didn't want to sit through a celebration that was supposed to be joyful while being forced to pretend everything was fine with someone who had hurt me so deeply. Sarah didn't take this well. She accused me of being selfish and not supporting her on her big day. She said that it wasn't fair to put her in the position of choosing between me and Jason. She argued that she had known both of us for years, and if she invited me, she had to invite him too. She also said that Mark was really looking forward to seeing Jason, and it would have been uncomfortable for her if I wasn't there. I felt completely blindsided. I've always been there for her, and yet it felt like she was more concerned about keeping the peace with Jason than respecting my feelings. She told me that she didn't expect me to be besties with him, but that I should at least be mature enough to handle the situation for the sake of the wedding. She said that it wasn't fair of me to make her choose between her two friends, especially when she was already stressed about the wedding planning. At this point, I felt like I was being gaslit. I told her that if Jason was going to be there, I wouldn't be attending. I didn't want to be anywhere near him. I didn't feel like I owed it to anyone to put myself in that position. I wasn't going to sacrifice my emotional health for a wedding, no matter how much I cared about Sarah. She was livid when I told her this. She accused me of being petty and unreasonable, and she said that if I didn't show up, she'd consider it a betrayal. She said it was her big day, and I was being difficult for not just letting it go. We ended the conversation with me saying I wouldn't attend the wedding, and she hung up on me. That was about a week ago, and I haven't heard from her since. I've been feeling a mix of guilt and frustration. I know it's her wedding, and I want to be there for her, but at the same time, I feel like she's asking too much of me. I've tried to put myself in her shoes, and I get that she doesn't want drama, but I don't feel like I'm the one causing it. It feels like she's putting her relationship with Jason over our friendship, and it stings. But I also understand that I'm not entitled to dictate who she invites to her wedding. I've been second-guessing myself a lot. Maybe I could have just gone and ignored Jason, but I don't know if that's even possible for me, and I don't want to pretend to be okay with something I'm not. I've always been honest with Sarah, and I don't want to be fake just for the sake of keeping the peace. So, AITA for refusing to go to my best friend's wedding because my ex-husband is invited. AITA for refusing to let my brother stay with me after he kicked out his girlfriend for not cooking dinner. I, 30M, live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in the city. I've always been a bit of a homebody and enjoy my space. I work remotely and don't go out much, so I appreciate the peace and quiet of my place. My brother, 27M, however, is the complete opposite. He's more social, loves going out, and has been in a long-term relationship with his girlfriend, Lena, 25F, for about 3 years now. They've had their ups and downs like most couples, but I thought they were solid overall. A few weeks ago, my brother and Lena got into a huge argument that resulted in them breaking up. From what I gathered, it started because Lena didn't want to cook dinner one night, and my brother blew up at her, calling her lazy and accusing her of not pulling her weight in the relationship. According to him, she had been slacking off with household chores for a while, and this particular incident was the last straw. He told me that after their argument, she packed her bags and left. At first, I didn't think much of it. Breakups happen all the time, and I assumed they'd cool off and work things out. But then, my brother called me a few days later, asking if he could stay with me for a while. I was taken aback, but agreed. I've always been close with my brother, and I wanted to help him out during a tough time. He said he was looking for a new place to live, but he needed a few weeks to get everything sorted out. For context, I've never had issues with my brother living with me before. When we were younger, we shared a room, and even as adults, we've crashed at each other's places a few times. So, I thought it would be no big deal. I made sure he understood that the apartment was small, and I value my privacy, but he assured me it would only be a temporary stay. The first couple of days were fine. My brother was a little down, but he kept to himself mostly. He was getting his things together, looking for a new place, and I made sure to give him space. But then a few days in, things started to feel off. I came home from work one evening to find him lounging on the couch, playing video games. Lena's things were scattered around the apartment, and it was clear she had come by earlier in the day. I didn't want to pry, but I asked him what was going on. He sighed and said, "We talked, and I told her I'd reconsider if she could apologize for not doing her part in the relationship." She's stubborn, though. She won't even admit that she's been slacking. I was shocked by how angry he still sounded. I mean, I get it, breakups suck, and sometimes people act irrationally when they're hurt. But this seemed like something deeper than just a simple breakup. It was clear my brother was still upset, and it was affecting his mood. The energy in the apartment started to shift. He was no longer just a guest staying with me. He was bringing his unresolved anger into my space, and I started to feel uncomfortable. A few days later, things took another turn. I was working from home when my brother came into the room, looking visibly upset. He sat down across from me and started talking about Lena again. This time, he told me that he had invited her over to his new apartment, which he had found, by the way, and they were trying to figure things out. He asked me if I thought he was being unreasonable for wanting her to cook dinner as part of making things right. I was taken aback by the question. I told him that it seemed a little strange to hinge the success of the relationship on something like dinner, especially since cooking should be a shared responsibility in any partnership. But he got defensive and started saying things like, "I'm tired of doing everything around the house while she just sits there on her phone, and why is it so hard to make dinner every once in a while?" I tried to explain that everyone has their limits, and maybe there was more to the situation than he was seeing, but he didn't seem open to hearing it. He was convinced that Lena was being unreasonable and that he had every right to demand that she make up for what he perceived as her neglect. This is when I started to feel really uncomfortable. It wasn't just that my brother was going through a tough time. It was the fact that he was using my apartment as a base to process his anger, and I was getting dragged into it. I have my own life and work to focus on, and I didn't want to be in the middle of their drama. One evening, he came home and announced that Lena had texted him, saying she wanted to come over and talk things through. He told me, "I think she might be ready to apologize, but if she doesn't, I'm done with her for good." I wasn't sure what exactly he was expecting from me in this conversation, but it felt like he was unloading all his emotional baggage on me, and I was just not prepared for it. I decided to set some boundaries and told him that, as much as I cared about him, I wasn't comfortable with him continuing to bring all his drama into my space. I said, "Look, I understand you're going through a tough time, but this isn't healthy for me. I need some space, and I'd like you to find another place to stay." He was furious. He said that I was being unsupportive and that I was abandoning him when he needed me most. He even accused me of not caring about his feelings and only thinking about myself. But the truth was, I felt like I was being dragged into a toxic situation that I didn't want to be a part of anymore. I tried to explain that I wasn't rejecting him as a person, but that I just couldn't be involved in his relationship drama. He didn't take it well, and we ended up having a pretty heated argument. I offered to help him find a place to stay temporarily if he needed to, but he didn't want to hear it. He stormed out of the apartment, and we haven't spoken much since. A few days later, I got a text from him saying that he found a place and that he was done with me. He said I was just like everyone else who's always too busy to help. It stung, but I also felt relieved. I knew I'd made the right decision for my own mental health. Now, I'm questioning whether I was too harsh. I know he's upset, but I feel like I can't keep putting his emotional needs ahead of my own peace of mind. He's still not talking to me, and I don't know if I've damaged our relationship permanently. So, AITA for telling my brother to leave after he brought all his relationship issues into my home. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of the way she treated me in the past. I, 29F, have a sister, Samantha, 33F, who is getting married in a couple of months. We're not incredibly close, but we grew up together, and until recently, I thought we had a decent relationship. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the most outgoing person, but I try to maintain healthy relationships with my family and friends. That being said, I was shocked when Samantha asked me to be her maid of honor. To give some context, our relationship has always been a bit strained. Samantha and I were never the type of sisters who were best friends or had a special bond. I was always the quiet one, and she was the outgoing, attention-grabbing one. Throughout our childhood, she would often make fun of me, especially when I was shy or awkward in social settings. I don't remember ever being particularly close to her, but I tried to get along. The problems really started to intensify when we were teenagers. She would make comments about my weight, appearance, and personality. She was always the one getting praised by our parents, while I was left to fend for myself. I remember once, when I was 16, she threw a party for all of her friends and left me out. I was stuck at home alone while she had fun, and when I confronted her about it, she said it was because I was too boring to hang out with her friends. I spent a lot of my teenage years feeling excluded and not good enough, but I tried to keep my distance and focus on my studies. When I was 18, I left for college, and things seemed to settle down a bit. I focused on myself, made my own friends, and started to build a life where I wasn't constantly reminded of my sister's harsh words. Fast forward to a few years ago, when Samantha reached out to me after several years of limited communication. She apologized for the way she treated me growing up, saying that she had grown up and realized that she had been hurtful. I appreciated the apology, but I couldn't forget how much those years had impacted me. I didn't immediately cut her off, but I didn't feel ready to be best friends either. We began to communicate more, but it was a slow process. When she told me she was engaged and asked me to be her maid of honor, I was taken aback. I had expected her to ask one of her closest friends, or even someone from her new inner circle, since we'd only started rebuilding our relationship. I politely told her I was honored by the invitation, but I needed some time to think about it. She insisted that it was important to her, that I was the only person she trusted, and that we had both grown, so it made sense to her. I felt conflicted. On one hand, I didn't want to make her feel bad, but on the other hand, I didn't want to force myself into a situation that might bring up painful memories. After a week of thinking it over, I decided to decline the offer. I told her that, while I was happy she was getting married, I didn't feel like I could take on such an important role given our past. I explained that I didn't feel comfortable being in the spotlight, and that I wasn't sure I could handle the emotional weight of being her maid of honor, given how our relationship had developed. I offered to support her in other ways, like helping with some wedding tasks or being there on the day of, but I didn't want to put myself in a position where I was expected to give more than I was ready to. She was upset when I told her, and it wasn't a pleasant conversation. She accused me of being petty and holding on to old grudges. She said I was being selfish and that I should be the bigger person because family is family. She told me I was making things more difficult for her and that it hurt her to know that I didn't want to support her during such an important time in her life. She said I was acting like a child and that I was ruining the chance for us to move forward as sisters. I tried to explain that it wasn't about holding grudges, but about not feeling ready to take on that responsibility. I also explained that I felt like her asking me to be maid of honor was a bit out of the blue, given how little time we had spent together in recent years. I didn't think it was fair to expect me to step into such a huge role after everything that had happened, but she didn't understand. The conversation ended with both of us feeling hurt and frustrated. A few days later, she told me that she was disappointed in me and that she had already picked someone else to be her maid of honor. She said she'd never forget how I had made her feel. I apologized again, but I didn't back down from my decision. She hasn't really spoken to me since, and I haven't initiated contact either. The tension is palpable at family gatherings, and I've been getting a lot of comment from other relatives saying that I should have just sucked it up and done it for her. Now, with the wedding coming up, I feel like I'm in a tough spot. Samantha keeps sending me messages asking me to come, reminding me that family is family, and it would mean so much to her. I've already told her I won't be attending, and I'm sticking to my decision. I feel like I'm justified in not going, but I also know it's causing a lot of drama within the family. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of the way she treated me in the past? Am I being unreasonable for not wanting to put myself in a position where I might have to pretend everything is okay when it's not? AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she banned my fiancé from the ceremony? So, a bit of context. I, 29F, have been best friends with Jessica, 28F, since we were in high school. We've always been close, and I've been there for her through thick and thin. When she got engaged to her now husband, Brad, 30M, I was over the moon for her. I've been in her life for years, so I thought I knew her and her relationships inside out. However, things got complicated recently, and I'm now feeling like maybe I've been put in an impossible situation. About 6 months ago, my fiancé, 32M, Jason and I went through a rough patch. We'd been together for 3 years, and while things were generally good, there was a major argument that led to a temporary breakup. It wasn't a full-on breakup, but more of a cool-off period. We both needed space to figure things out. During this time, Jessica reached out to me to check in and offer support, which I appreciated. I told her what was going on, and she was kind but also a little concerned, especially about Jason's attitude during the argument. Now, here's where things started to get weird. Jessica made a few offhand comments to me about how Jason wasn't right for me and how I should consider breaking up with him. At the time, I didn't think much of it. We all have opinions, right? But the more I thought about it, the more it started to feel like Jessica was giving me subtle advice about Jason that I didn't ask for, and it was starting to get under my skin. I wasn't sure if she had something against him or if she was just being overly protective. Fast forward to the present. Jason and I ended up working things out and reconciling. It wasn't perfect, but we both were committed to making it work, and things have been going great for the past few months. We've even gotten stronger in some ways because of the challenges we faced together. I've never been more sure about him, and we're looking forward to our wedding in the near future. Jessica, however, was still holding on to her opinion that Jason wasn't the right one for me. She made a few more remarks to me, and I started feeling like she didn't respect my relationship. I tried to let it go, but then, a month ago, she dropped a bombshell. She told me that she and Brad were getting married soon, which I was thrilled to hear, but then she made a request that completely caught me off guard. She said she wanted me to be her maid of honor, which of course I said yes to, but then she added something I wasn't prepared for. She told me that Jason wasn't invited to the wedding. In fact, she outright banned him from attending. She said that she didn't feel comfortable having him there, and that she didn't think he was a good influence on me. At first, I was stunned. I tried to stay calm and asked her to explain why she felt that way, but she just repeated her stance. She said that Jason's attitude during our breakup made her question his character, and that she didn't want him around at such an important day. I told her that I didn't agree with her and that Jason had nothing to do with her wedding. I also pointed out that I'd never interfered in her relationship with Brad, and I expected the same respect for mine. Jessica didn't seem to care about my reasoning. She insisted that Jason's negative energy wouldn't be welcome at her wedding, and she made it clear that if I wanted to be a part of her special day, I would have to come without him. This didn't sit right with me at all. I've been friends with Jessica for years, but I don't think it's okay to ask someone to choose between a lifelong friendship and their significant other. It felt controlling and unfair. After all, Jason was part of my life, and asking me to choose between him and her was a line I wasn't willing to cross. I told Jessica that I couldn't attend her wedding if Jason wasn't invited. I explained that it wasn't about the wedding itself, but about the fact that she was trying to dictate my relationship. She wasn't thrilled, to put it lightly. She called me selfish and said that if I really cared about her, I would respect her wishes. She accused me of prioritizing a man over a friend, which, frankly, felt like a manipulation. Since then, things have been awkward between us. Jessica has told me that if I don't attend her wedding, she might reconsider our friendship, and she's even posted on social media about how some people can't put friendship above their romantic relationships. Her comments have felt pointed, and I'm honestly starting to feel like she's guilt-tripping me. I've tried to explain to her that this isn't about choosing sides, but rather about respecting boundaries, but she doesn't seem to get it. Now, I'm at a crossroads. Part of me feels like I should just attend without Jason and put the whole situation behind me. But another part of me feels like this is a fundamental issue of respect that can't be ignored. I've always valued my friendship with Jessica, but I can't shake the feeling that she's asking for too much. At the same time, I don't want to lose a friend I've had for so long. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she banned my fiancé from the ceremony. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding because of her constant manipulation. So, here's the situation. I, 28F, have a sister, Emma, 26F, and for as long as I can remember, she has always been very demanding. It's not like I don't love her, I do, but the constant manipulation and emotional blackmail have gotten to the point where I'm honestly fed up. I've been thinking about this for a while, and now I'm wondering if I'm the one being unreasonable. A little background. Growing up, Emma was the golden child. She could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, and I was the one who always had to be the responsible one. This continued through our teenage years and into adulthood. I didn't resent her for it at first, but over time, it started to feel like I was always the one making sacrifices while Emma was given everything she wanted. If I ever tried to voice any concerns or frustrations, my parents would always tell me that I should be more understanding because Emma has a lot on her plate or is just going through a tough time. It was exhausting, and honestly, it set the tone for our entire relationship. Fast forward to a few months ago. Emma got engaged to her longtime boyfriend, Jake, 28M, and the wedding planning began. Now, I was genuinely happy for her. I wanted her to have the wedding of her dreams, but I knew that Emma had a tendency to make everything about her, and I was already bracing myself for the inevitable help me, help me, help me requests. Sure enough, within a week of her getting engaged, I got a call from her asking if I could help with some wedding stuff. I said sure. What did she need help with? She told me she needed help with a few small things. Picking out bridesmaids' dresses, helping with the seating chart, finding a florist. Typical things. I agreed and asked her to send me a list of what she needed help with. The list was more than I expected. It wasn't just a few small things. It was a long list, and it was clear she had no intention of hiring professionals for anything. She wanted me to handle most of it. I'd be the one picking out the dresses, coordinating with the florist, finding the caterer, etc. It was like she had no interest in doing any of it herself. I'm a little more detail-oriented and organized than she is, so I guess she just expected me to take on the bulk of the wedding planning. At first, I tried to help. I really did. But after a while, it became clear that Emma wasn't just asking for help. She was treating me like her personal wedding planner. I have my own life and responsibilities. I work a full-time job, have my own relationships to nurture, and I was already feeling overwhelmed with everything I was trying to balance. I tried to explain this to her, but she just kept telling me that this is the most important day of her life and that she needed me to be there for her. Of course, that came with the usual guilt tripping. She would say things like, "I can't believe I have to ask my sister for help with this," or "It's not fair that I'm doing all of this alone while you get to live your life." So I kept pushing through, trying to help where I could, but I was getting more and more frustrated. A few weeks ago, things really started to escalate. Emma asked me to help with the invitations. She said she needed me to address the envelopes because her handwriting wasn't good enough and that it would take too long for her to do it herself. I agreed to do it, but I told her I needed some time to do it. I was juggling a lot of work at the time, and I couldn't just drop everything to address hundreds of envelopes. I told her I could do 50 at a time over the course of a few days. She got upset. She told me that it was too late to be doing them in batches and that I should have started sooner. She implied that I was being selfish and inconsiderate of her big day. It really hurt. I felt like I was giving her all I had to give, and it still wasn't enough. A few days later, she called me again and asked me to help her pick up her wedding dress. I had no issue with that. She's my sister. I wanted to be there for her on that special day. But when I got to the bridal shop with her, things took a turn. She was throwing a fit because the dress didn't fit perfectly, even though it was just a fitting and not the final alteration. She kept demanding that the seamstress make last-minute changes that weren't necessary, which held up the entire process. I tried to be supportive, but at one point, I snapped and told her she needed to calm down because the dress was still going to look amazing after a few alterations. She got so upset with me, saying that I was ruining the moment and that I didn't care enough about her wedding. Honestly, at that point, I was feeling more like a punching bag than a supportive sister. After the bridal shop incident, I decided I couldn't keep going like this. I had already sacrificed so much of my time and energy, and Emma was still demanding more. I sat down with her and told her that I couldn't continue to help with the wedding. I explained that I loved her, but that I had my own life and I couldn't take on all the wedding planning for her. I told her that I felt like she was treating me like an unpaid wedding planner and that I couldn't keep sacrificing my time and energy for something that was making me miserable. She didn't take it well. She called me selfish, saying that she couldn't believe I was abandoning her when she needed me the most. She said that I was ruining her wedding and that I was being too dramatic. The thing is, I really thought I had made it clear to her that I needed a break and that helping with the wedding was becoming overwhelming. But she just keeps calling me selfish and accusing me of ruining her big day. I'm starting to feel guilty. Part of me feels like I should just suck it up and help her, because, after all, she's my sister and I want her to be happy. But at the same time, I feel like I'm constantly being asked to sacrifice my own well-being for her, and it's just not fair anymore. So, AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding because I'm fed up with her manipulation. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.